James at 16 will not be presented this evening, but will return next week at its regular time. Stay tuned now for a special 2-hour What Really Happened to the Class of 65.
Word Balloon is brought to you by the League of Word Balloon Listeners.
Years of work pretty much into this big coffee table book, which now is benefited by a show like this where you can see a lot of this stuff that I newly created and some of the older stuff I've done.
If you're here at Word Balloon, it's because you like comics, creators, conversation, pop culture subjects. Would you consider joining the League of Word Balloon Listeners? Patreon.com/wordballoon. When you subscribe, you'll also be part of the Word Balloon Book Club, where Brian Michael Bendis and I will pick a comic every month to review and discuss live with the League on this show. Join the League today, patreon.com/wordballoon. Thank you always for your support, League of Word Balloon listeners. Welcome back, everybody. Time again for another Word Balloon Live, the comic book conversation show. John Sutry's here, always helping to welcome Greg Pak back to the show. Good to see you, Greg.
Thanks so much for having me. Pleasure to be here.
Absolutely, man. You're very busy. You got a few titles out there.
Yeah, got a few things going on.
Absolutely, and we'll play some of the old hits as well for people who may want to talk about DC and Marvel stuff that is worthy of being on somebody's bookshelf. But let's start off with some fun stuff from Dark Horse doing Dungeons and Dragons, huh?
Yes. This is it's Dungeons and Dragons: The Fallbacks, written by yours truly, drawn by Wilton Santos, colors by Edwin Alves and Raul Angulo, and it is awesome. The book is it's based on characters that were introduced by J. Lee Johnson in some novels, some Dungeons and Dragons novels, licensed novels. And I got a call from the Dark Horse folks, Spencer Cushing over at Dark Horse. I've just done a lot of stuff with Spencer over the years, and including some stuff that had Dungeons and Dragons as sort of a part of it on the periphery, because I was doing these Stranger Things books with Spencer, and the characters were playing D&D and whatnot. So Spencer knew I was, I was an old school D&D player and had started again recently, and he knew I loved the game. And so when they got the Dungeons and Dragons license, he called me up, and here I am. It's a fun project because it's based on these brand new characters that were introduced in these J. Lee Johnson novels, and the characters are just a lot of fun. But we get to do totally brand new adventures, and they're, it's got that kind of, I think the proudest I am of it is that it has that anything can happen feel of an actual D&D campaign. I think, you know what I mean? Like, one of the things I love about D&D is that your dungeon master, the person who's putting the game together, can make all these intricate plans of the world and have this big thing about what he or she thinks the thing's going to be all about, and then the players will be like, actually, we want to go to the store and shop all day, or we want to find out what's the deal with the dog. You know what I mean? Like the dungeon master will mention a dog in the opening scene, and then suddenly the players are like, I want to pet the dog, and then suddenly that becomes the whole adventure. Is like, although it's probably a wyvern rather than a dog, but you know what I'm talking about. But there is that kind of and also like this thing of like, you get a bunch of fun people, you're playing D&D with all your friends, everybody's like, pick characters who have different motivations and all that kind of stuff, and just because you're all on the same team doesn't mean it's gonna be smooth. It doesn't mean it's gonna go, like people take big swings, and these characters do too. And I think it's I just love the vibe. I love the just the sense that anything could go wrong. These are also, characters on the periphery. These are not your traditional heroes. These are adventurers and troublemakers. They're led by a rogue, I'll put it that way. So there's a lot of fun to be had.
Yeah, I was going to ask about the group. Tell
Yeah,
us
yeah,
more
yeah.
about who's in the group.
Yes. So the group is led by Tess, who is Elven Rogue, and she's I just love the idea of like back in the day we didn't have rogues, we just called them thieves. And now that player class is expanded, and some are thieves, some are different. Like I think assassins fall into that category too. But as a rogue, your skills are being sort of sneaky and deceptive and stealthy and all those kinds of good things. And that's not something we necessarily associate with the leaders of the troop. So that's just a fun dynamic right there. There's a fighter named Anson who is sort of like your the kind of he's got a heart of gold and a sword of gold, although his sword is broken mysteriously, sparks with electrical energy. But Anson Anson is kind of like the sort of most straightforward and reliable, in that sort of traditional way of the characters. We have a tiefling bard. Tiefling, that's a newish character type. Yeah, I know. I see you shaking your head. Back when we were kiddos, they did not have such characters, but tieflings, that is a species that is they've got horns and sort of devilish characteristics. Not that doesn't mean they're evil, but they've
Okay.
but they've and but our bard has secrets. But also he's a bard, and he loves attention, and he's something of a ham, although very skilled. But his motivations are maybe a little more centered around glory and performance and what makes a good show, rather than what is necessarily the smartest or most strategic thing to do. There is a wizard named Kazrin, and what I like about her is that she is sort of she's got a real capacity for hyper focus. She likes learning, and she gets obsessed with things. Like she's a wizard for a reason, because she likes figuring things out. But again, she's like that's so she may get distracted by stuff, which is intensely of interest to her, but may not necessarily benefit the group immediately in times of crisis. And then there's a bard, and Baldric the Bard is a dwarf bard.
So,
What
so
I
two bards.
Oh no, I'm sorry, a cleric. Why did I say bard? I didn't.
Oh, a cleric. Okay,
Yeah, a
sure.
cleric. Sorry. No, he's a cleric.
All right.
But the fun twist with this, and a cleric in D&D is like it's a religious,
Yeah,
basically
he's
it's
a holy man.
a religious magic user, right? So
Yeah.
it's a person who like channels spells from a god, and but Baldric's it's a really fun concept for a cleric, because the notion of Baldric, that we got, from the J. Lee Johnson books, is that he doesn't really worship the gods. He bargains with them. And he's not here as sort of like the representative for any one god. He kind of has developed relationships with a bunch of different ones, and depending on the circumstance, will initiate contact with one, and he goes about, instead of just like channeling that, powers from that god as that god's chosen, champion. He's negotiating for a little help here and there, but there's always a trade-off. And as a result, he's also a little cynical. You know what I mean? Like he's here to cut deals, not to pay homage. And
Almost like a Constantine sort of attitude. Would you say?
I guess so, maybe. I mean, he definitely. I mean, we've got a line in there where he talks about like, the gods are, like there's somebody's talking about like the gods, and he's like, the gods are a lot like people. You know what I mean? He's just like they're just very powerful, very fickle people, and it's a cool angle. So
So
so go on.
is the motivation of the not everyone obviously is on the same page as far as their own individual motivations of being in the group?
Yeah, so they've all got their individual things going on. And I mean they are they all have backstories that have set them up to be on their own. So they've come together. It's that sort of found family thing,
Sure.
that which is also what D&D is all about. I mean, it's like groups of
Yeah.
friends playing groups of friends. You know what I mean? It's that the
Yeah.
party, and in fact, and so but. but they've got, I mean, in terms of the central conflict and that kind of emotional conflict in this story, part of it is like you get all these folks who have their, yeah, they've got their own motivations and all that kind of stuff, but then they show up in this town, and 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 they're, you know, they're looking to score some, you know, to basically pull off a heist. You know, they've heard about like this, there's a treasure in town or near town, and they want to get a piece of that. And then they find themselves sort of thrust into this role of of uh of possible heroes. You know what I mean? These folks who do not think of, they're not here to be heroes, but there are folks who need some help. And what is this band of rogues going to do? And there's also a fun dynamic because Tess, who's the leader of the group, encounters a figure from her past, and who, and so there are very personal and pretty darn funny reasons for her to get involved in the conflict that ensues, which are not necessarily all pure of heart. So I don't know. The book just gives us lots of opportunity to play with this notion of like, you know, different notions of like why people do things and how to do the right thing in a world that's full of shades of gray. And what the hell the right thing even is. You know what I mean? Because again, like this is, I mean, going back to Baldric and this question of like, you know, like the gods are not good necessarily, you know what I mean? And just because and the world itself, the rules of this world, the rules of the society that they live in are not necessarily fair or good, you know? And so they've learned to sort of manipulate those things and get by and do what they need for themselves. But what happens when bigger responsibilities fall on the shoulders of this kind of band that's not really looking for that?
Is there a gameplay aspect in the comic itself that you
There,
could, like, is there a map and you could, you know, beyond the story that you're telling,
well,
can
it is set in you know, in the existing Dungeons and Dragons world that's laid out in a lot of the handbooks and you know, and guides. So you could, you know, you like we're mentioning actual places from that continuity and everything. So you could I mean, you could figure out how to play this game. I mean, play this story within the game.
yeah,
That's yeah, I mean, that's would be easy to do. And you could take these characters and figure out their stats and run with them that way. Um, the the there we haven't set up a game that accompanies it. You know what I mean? Like we don't have a
yeah,
module for how to play
I
this.
understand. That's what I was wondering. Sure.
Although who knows? Maybe something like that could ensue eventually. Um, but yeah, it's fun. I mean, there are going to be in some of the future issues, we are going to have like stat blocks, game style stat blocks for some of the characters and creatures that we're introducing here.
That's that's great. God, dude, as you said, I mean, I was playing D&D briefly in high school when it was still graph paper,
Oh yeah,
you
exactly.
know, and it's really been fun watching how big it got. And I just had friends that would have characters within characters, like, well, I'm posing as a cleric, but actually I'm a ninja,
Yeah,
and it's like, all right, listen, I don't, you know what, I just want to find the pot of gold, okay? I want to keep it very simple, you know.
yeah.
I,
There were for a long time. I was like, I'm just gonna be a fighter because I can't keep track of all the spells, man.
yes,
And you know, so but it is. I mean, it is funny. Like there's,
it's fun.
I think I've grown up as being kind of a. I mean, you know, if you talk about alignment, D&D traditional alignment, I think I've been lawful good to a fault. You know, like Boy Scout lawful good kind of. And so when I play, like I realized over the years, lots of times when I play D&D, I have the most fun playing like these chaotic characters. You know what I mean? Who are like chaotic neutral to chaotic good characters who are just gonna, you know, who I it's which makes sense, right? Like you get to
Yeah,
cut loose a little bit and try different things. So
sure.
but it's fun. I mean, I think it's we've gotten some feedback from folks who have read it, and I think the nicest thing somebody said is that it totally felt like actually it captured that energy of actually playing the game with with some of your most fun friends, and that's the best compliment you could get. I will also say that it should be totally accessible to anybody who has never played the game, in the sense that you don't have to know, like, we're not doing esoteric references to stats that you need to understand and all that kind of stuff. It should read like another fantasy world kind of story that you might pick up. So this kind of world should be fairly familiar, and you don't have to have any special esoteric knowledge. If you are a long-term D&D fan or player, and if like, there's definitely Easter eggs and fun little bits here and there that will resonate. But hopefully it's a book that everybody can get a kick out of.
When you write a game, I called it a game. When you write a comic like this, do you try to, like, incorporate as much gameplay as you can within your storytelling?
Yeah, well, the fun thing about D&D is that like some games, it's really just all about the action, right? I mean, like, but D&D, like, the way a lot of people play D&D is it's role play. You know what I mean? Like, folks
Absolutely.
are spending. I mean, I joked about the shopping thing, but I've literally been on campaigns where it's like, and the last week we met, we like scored a big heist or whatever. We got a lot of gold, and then the next session for 2 hours, we're just like going around town, going to different shops. I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, and of course, there's all this little character stuff going on and little bits and pieces, and yeah, but it doesn't have to be like, the game itself isn't all about set piece fights. Like the character stuff and the fun interplay between you and your friends as you play the game, that's the sweet spot. So having being able to to write a book that reflects the vibe of D&D, it doesn't require you to sacrifice any good storytelling. Do you know what I'm saying? It's like, it's not like you have to.
Yeah.
I mean, definitely we have really good fun fights, but we're, like, I think the expectation with a D&D game is that you're bringing, like, the character stuff is paramount. Just having fun with these different characters, putting them in conflict, and and giving them all kinds of challenges, not just magical or physical challenges, but all these different interactive character challenges. That's the gold. And I mean, and it's also, I mean, it's always ridiculous to call your own work funny, right? You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to compliment myself too much or pat myself too much on the back, but I mean, playing D&D, I laugh a lot. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
belly laughs, falling out of your chair laughs, and because it's just fun. Like, unexpected things happen, and just just the vibe is really great when you got a good group. And so we are definitely making room in this book for all those little quirky moments, and the it's a fun book, and I think it's a pretty funny book. I think Wilton Santos's pencils absolutely help enormously with that, because this is somebody who totally gets all the big action and all the little interactive moments, and it's a kick in the pants. Hope you enjoy.
Have you worked with Santos before?
No, this was the first time. The first time we,
Cool.
yeah, the folks at Dark Horse dug up, different samples, and Wilton stuff just really jumped out for having, all that world building and all that character.
And is it 5 issues?
Yeah, 4 issues.
4.
And then yeah, they're big issues, like, they're oversized. Not
Oh.
not physically oversized, but these are
Uh,
pretty thick books.
Yeah, good.
So yeah, I mean, which is nice too, because when you're establishing a new world, it's nice to have a few extra pages, and also just let everything breathe, so we can have that really great mix of character moments and action.
Is there other back matter that you're going to have in the book? As you said, you're going to do power levels and things.
That's
Later.
yeah, that, I mean, there is some stuff planned. I don't think we went haywire with that in the first issue.
Okay.
But definitely in subsequent issues you'll see some stuff.
When does it start?
I believe this first issue comes out. It's either the 8th or the 15th. I honestly can't remember right now. I think it's the
Okay.
8th. I think it does come out on the 8th. I mean, it went to press a while back, so it's ready to go. So I think it does come out on the 8th, October 8th, which, and if all goes well, I'll have copies of the New York Comic Con. You come get them from
There
me.
you go, man. That's what I was going to suggest. Absolutely, man. So hit up Greg at New York Comic Con. I imagine you'll be doing signings at the Dark Horse.
Oh, yeah.
booth.
Well, I'm going to have a table in Artist Alley, so you can find me in Artist Alley.
Okay. Excellent. And another big thing that you've got going on, Supernatural.
Yes. This is
the Winchesters are back.
Exactly. Winchesters are back. This is based on the TV show that ran for 15 years. And Nate Cosby over at Dynamite called me up and asked if I'd be interested. And I actually had not seen much of the show, so I dug in, and within a very short amount of time, I was like, "Yes, Nate, I'm absolutely in." It's a fun. It's kind of right up my alley. It's, I mean, how do you describe it? So we're setting these stories in between episodes towards the end of the first season of the show. So
okay.
So it's fairly early in the show. And that's a sweet spot. The story is basically about these two brothers who basically are hunting ghosts and monsters and all kinds of other creepy crawlies and supernatural things, hence the title of the show.
They're cool. They drive around in their cool car.
Exactly, in their cool car. And there's all kinds of there's a tragic backstory with their mom and their father, and their father's this sort of looming figure that haunts them, but the real dynamics between these two brothers, and they of course drive each other bonkers. There's the sort of college boy brother, and there's the kind of kick-ass James Deany brother, and they're just a ton of fun. You know what I mean? Like the show has a really fun vibe that is not scared of genuine emotion and real moments of drama between these brothers and other characters, and it's also not scared of really goofball humor and just embracing awkward situations and fun wordplay and just the dynamics of these brothers getting on each other's nerves, and it's just a real kick in the pants to write. I mean, the other thing sorry, go on.
No, I was just going to say that I was not a Supernatural watcher either, and then found myself talking to people that contributed to the show. Oh, yeah. I talked to Ben Edlund when he did his French Mistake episode, which is hilarious. And Jeremy Adams has been on a lot in the last couple of years. And he, of course, wrote the Scooby-Doo episode. And, and Robbie Thompson did Supernatural stuff, but also the prequel series, The Winchesters.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah.
Yeah, I have great respect. I mean, in like 15 years, man. I mean, I get it. And that's totally great. And then also, it's nice to see a ghost hunter show that embraces something different beyond the usual city kind of location.
Yeah.
Show. And the fact that it is kind of this, forgive me, everybody, I don't mean any politics when I call it a red state horror adventure show. It kind of is.
Yeah, I mean, there is a fun vibe that I appreciate. It's a road show, also. You know what I mean? Like they're on the road and they're going from town to town. They're going to these little towns, and it's got this very kind of rustic, worn, analog, organic feel, like just the set design and the costume design and everything. Absolutely. And it was, they originally the show launched in 2005? Yeah, 2005. And so this is before social media, I mean, there were there was AOL Messenger and stuff, but this is, I mean, I guess Facebook and stuff had just launched, but it's before, like, that's not part of the show. You know what I'm saying? So they have a laptop, they can get online. I think there's at least one episode where they go to an internet cafe, if I'm remembering that right. But it's not like, they don't have like HUDs, you know what I mean? And there's not like, they're not like dialing into the mainframe, and you know what I mean? It's all about, like, I mean, I've gotten back into analog photography. You know what I mean? I've got a freaking typewriter, an analog electric typewriter now. I'm using fountain pens. You know what I mean? I'm totally that dork. Yeah, I'm actually listening to cassettes again. I'm going to thrift stores and buying cassettes. I've got '80s Iowa boombox that I bought off eBay. That's just like the one I had when I was in high school, because the analog sort of everyday tactile stuff is connecting. You know what I mean? Like you feel
I
connected to the world, and it's
absolutely.
so there's really something to all that, and I just dig that the show does that. You know what I mean? Like it feels, and I think that's really important with a supernatural show. You know, that it you've got all this like weird stuff going on, and so when it's contrasted with a world that is as down to earth and tactile as can be, it feels more real. You know, and also
Yeah.
just the contrast is more shocking and fun. You know, so anyway, so all of that is like, yeah, I mean, there's a huge appeal to me in all of that stuff too. Also, I grew up in Texas, and that sort of like, I mean, I live in New York. I live in Brooklyn now. You know, like I really don't like driving, but when I was a kid, like road trips were great. You know what I mean? And all this kind of,
Yeah.
and so and also just like the way little towns have their own little mysteries, like all of that kind of stuff is really,
Sure.
it's great. It's great. It's a really fun thing. I mean, the other thing that attracted me to it, frankly, is that these characters, in addition to being having this great fun brother conflict, sibling conflict thing, um, they're also both really there's a real anti-authoritarian vibe to the show, which I appreciate a lot. They are they're dealing in a very complicated world, full of shades of gray, which is what I always love, where there are forces beyond their understanding that they're trying to figure out. But also it's like they are not they have kind of freed themselves from feeling bound by rules that don't make sense. You know what I'm saying? And as a result, they break about 12 laws every single episode. I mean, there's credit card fraud from like literally day one, and they're always like impersonating. They impersonate law enforcement a lot. They're yeah, there's a lot of I mean, like as with any mystery show, there's a lot of breaking and entering by the good guys, and I don't know. It is it's just I like the sort of gleeful, we're just going to do this thing that's going on here. Like these are characters who think for themselves and aren't scared to get in a little trouble. And it's fun.
So we got Sam, and I forget the other brother's name. Jensen Ackles' character.
Sam and Dean.
Sam and Dean. And is it Castriel? Is that the angel that?
Oh, so our show. I mean, our series is set. So we set it in the first season. We kind of did this on purpose. We set it before it gets into the kind of into the depths of the demonology. As the show goes on. Spoiler alert! As the show goes on, a lot of the mysteries about the murders that set this whole thing in motion are revealed to be connected to this. What you learn is I mean there's a whole demonology, angel, I don't know if what do you call it, angelology, I don't know, there's a whole eschatology, there's a whole description of, I mean there's a whole world of angels and devils and all this kind of stuff. We are not getting into that directly, so because we're earlier in the series, and partly that's just a chance because that we're in the more of the monster of the week sort of stretch, where that's cool. Like anything can happen in they could end up into I mean in the first issue we're dealing with, there are a bunch of mysterious fires going on, and there's some strange supernatural thing behind that. But we've got as the thing goes on, you're going to see. Well, what's some teases that I can do without spoiling too much? We're gonna have we're going to Vegas, so there's going to be some gambling. There's some Vegas stuff. There's going to be wizards in the woods. There's going to be librarians, very scary librarians. Get ready for that one. That may be my favorite. And there's we're also going to have some cowboys. So keep your eyes.
Oh yay!
But so we have a chance to play around with different genres. Every issue is going to be a new story. I mean, there's also there's we're really kind of sticking to that episodic feel. there is, yeah, exactly. So it's going to be, it's going to be, fast paced and far from decompressed storytelling. We're going to do, we're going to cover some good ground and have a lot of fun at a good pace. There is a bigger story that takes place over these first 5 issues,
Okay.
but it's also, new locations and meeting new people every single and new monsters every single issue. So should be fun.
That's great, man. No, I love the idea behind it, and I don't know why I am fascinated by those kind of Highway 61,
Oh yeah, yeah,
abandoned when there's no lights on the highway. And, I mean, it's just like crazy stuff can happen. I always
yeah. Oh
said
yeah.
if I could draw, I would do Hank Williams and Lefty Frizzell, the old country
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
singer,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
like going from Honky Tonk City to Honky Tonk City
That's awesome.
and encountering supernatural shit.
Oh my
That
God,
would
that's a
would
great
be
that's a
well,
great pitch right there.
there you
Yeah,
go,
that's
man.
that's
So there's
that's
a
your
free idea, everybody.
yeah,
That
yeah, yeah.
but no, I really, and again, I sometimes I feel like I'm sound like I'm condescending, but I am. Being an urban guy, I just think that really is a great opportunity to tell these weird stories because, like you say, these small towns do have their little secrets,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
and you
totally.
don't know about them. And hey, the bartender's a werewolf. Okay, I'm in. Where do I
Yeah, yeah,
sign up? That's great.
yeah, yeah,
That kind of thing. So
yeah.
no,
I
that sounds
it
like fun. Keep going.
yeah, it scratches I mean, it scratches an itch for me. I grew up in, like I said, I grew up in Dallas. I was a Boy Scout. I spent all, huge amounts of time outdoors camping and all that kind of good stuff. And so I was always really attracted to, you know, outdoor adventure. You know what I'm saying? That kind of storytelling. And at the same time, now I live in New York City, and I've written tons of stuff, and a lot of stories in my head revolve around cities. You know what I mean? But it is a kick, and particularly working for Marvel. Like so much Marvel stuff is set in New York City, and that's been
Exactly.
it's great living in New York City and writing Marvel comics. That's been a lot of fun. But yeah, I'm always psyched when I have a chance to do something that spreads out a little bit. I mean, Planet Hulk was like that, right? You know what I mean? Like that's
Absolutely.
and the fallbacks book also kind of digs into that, and so it's nice to nice to take a little road trip from time to time.
Excellent. Here's some comments from the chat.
Oh, cool.
Dennis Hoffman, he's a fan of your work, and
Oh, hey,
also
Dennis.
your Action Comics run with Aaron Kuder was truly spectacular. Also, Ronan Island was fantastic. Giannis is Greek, is such a talent. Absolutely, man.
Yeah,
So
I've been incredibly lucky. Both those runs were just so much fun, and I'm really glad he gave shout outs to those artists, because those books would be nothing without those artists. Those artists. I mean, Aaron and I actually co-wrote. I mean, we started off with me writing and him drawing, and by the end of it, we were co-writing the Action Comics. Look at you! Look how prepared you are. You got a graphic. But yeah, we were co-writing that book by the end, and it absolutely was a group effort. I loved his Clark and Lana in particular, and the whole vibe that he brought to it. And yeah, and Yanni Malone Giannis, who was the artist for Ronan Island, similarly just great artist, so much fun. By the way, I need to plug Eder Messias, who is the artist for Supernatural.
very
Doing
good.
an incredible job. He's I worked with him on the Captain America book, the Sam Wilson Captain America book that we just did, and it's great to keep going with him. Yeah, that's his cover right there. He drew that cover.
Beautiful.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
For the video audience, the audio audience, this is why you got to go to YouTube and check out the videos.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah.
Greg, I'm sorry.
No,
Finish your thought, man. I'll say
oh yeah, I just want to say it was fun because yeah, on both the projects I've worked with Eder on, there's been these little like moments of serendipity where it's like, of course you're the one who's writing this book, or who's drawing this book. And with the Captain America book, I co-wrote that with Evan Narcisse, and there was a certain point when we were talking um, about Sam Wilson's Falcon, because he's got his, I mean, he's the Falcon, but he's got a hawk, sorry, it's called Red Wing. And
yeah, Red Wing, sure.
And we were talking about like what kind of bird it is and all of that, and it turns out that it's been established in continuity that it's a very specific Brazilian a Brazilian bird, Brazilian raptor. And Edder's like, oh yeah, I know that bird because Edder's Brazilian. You know what I mean? And it was just really kind of fun. He was like immediately like, yes, that's we're good. And then with Supernatural, like the show, he loves the show. I think it's like,
Oh, great.
yeah, he's been watching it for years. I think it's like his comfort show that he puts on while he's drawing. So it's kind of awesome to think of him being able to, put on his comfort show and then actually draw the actual book. You know what I mean? So
No, that's
it,
terrific. Absolutely.
it's been cool.
I want to ask about Superman because you were doing Superman and that New 52 period,
Hmm.
and I'm always curious because they really made an effort to distinguish that Superman from classic Superman to the point where
Yeah.
obviously when they brought classic Superman back and everything, that was a big deal. But so as a guy writing the book when it was happening, was that like did that add an extra layer of either difficulty or opportunity when you
I
were
would,
writing Superman?
I would definitely classify that as opportunity, in the sense that it was awesome because we had two things. We had a Superman that was really based on the very earliest Superman comics when Superman was I mean, he essentially a socialist, big city crusader, and his big enemies
Social
were like,
justice warrior,
yeah, yeah.
absolutely.
I mean, he's like fighting the cops in his first, and corrupt politicians and all that kind of
Yes.
stuff.
Yeah.
And that's what Grant Morrison did when they took over the book, or when they started that book.
Yeah.
That was which was just cool. I mean that's fun and new, and also it was a very young Superman. And this is not a Superman who's been out there being Superman for years. So it wasn't Uncle Superman. It was like your older cousin Superman. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And
I
in a
do.
way that like Uncle Superman knows what time it is at all times, and he's gonna sort of kind of give you a little wink and guide you, and smooth things over, and not make you feel bad, but also let you learn for yourself, and you know what I mean, like that. I love that Superman. But this Superman is your older cousin Superman, who's gonna eventually become that kind of Uncle Superman. But right now, he's more impulsive. He's less experienced. He's gonna screw things up more. You know what I mean? He's
Yeah.
totally got a heart of gold. But he's also figuring stuff out. He's not quite sure how to manage stuff. And that was just a really great. That was a great character to write, because there's just so much opportunity for for great character moments, and for him to figure stuff out. That's drama. That's gold. We
Well,
also
remind me,
sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, remind me of when the dynamic between Clark and Lana that you got to explore.
Yeah, well, we were so Lois was off the table for us because Lois was being featured in the other book. I would have loved it.
Lois was a jerk during the run. I'll be honest, that's my opinion. Honestly, when she exposes, the secret, it's like,
So-
I truly, Greg, no disrespect for what you guys were doing, but I'm like, that's not Lois Lane. Come on, man.
Well,
But again,
I
it
wa-
was a different spin, and they were going for different. I understand. So no, please continue.
Yeah. So I was, I mean, I barely wrote Lois. I mean, she just wasn't, we weren't able to feature her, but I was like, we need, like Superman is nothing without a supporting cast, and we needed to, to put normal people around him. And Lana was perfect because this is a young Superman who's really new to the game, and who else is he closest to other than Lana? I mean, like that's the person he's going to have the most history and relationship with, and it was really and then we knew that we wanted to kind of give her a job, you know what I mean, and
Yeah.
give her a little more,
Agency.
expertise, like yeah, and also it's like so that she had something that she was bringing to the table too, you know what I mean, like in terms of like in adventures and things like that, that she wouldn't just be the person to be rescued, that she'd have
100%.
something going on. And Aaron, I think it was Aaron's idea, was like, because I think Aaron had studied electrical engineering, so he's like, well, what about engineering, and so she became an electrical engineer, and that was like her thing, and it totally fit into the to the plot, which involved of our first storyline, which involved like a kind of a kaiju style monster that had electrical, powers and all that. So she's helping to
Okay.
figure that all out. But the real juice of that was just this dynamic between her and Clark, because she knows his secret. She knows that he's Superman, but she also knows he's Clark Kent. You know what I mean? And so he's just
Yeah.
like he's her buddy. You know what I mean? And so she's got she has she he's not Superman to her, and
I'm
and and so that gives that relationship a chance to it's a relationship with a real person, you know what I mean, who can call you on your bull, and who also may have different motivations and different angles than you do. And we played that up in that, like, she has certain instincts that and they come into conflict over those things, because also, yeah, he is fundamentally just Clark Kent, but he also has a different experience as Superman, as somebody who has all this power and all this responsibility to steal from another from the other side of the comics world. But he with all that power, he has a different angle on things. I mean, not to spoil too much, but there's scenes where she's like, "You just got to destroy that monster," and he's like, "Wait a minute." You know what I mean? Like, when you have so much power, when you can't actually be hurt by whatever it is you're going up against, or can't be killed or whatever, you kind of have a responsibility to figure out if you could settle this and reach somebody instead of just beating them down, you know?
Sure. Sure.
And so all of that was great to explore.
Did you? So obviously, then I'm sure you saw some symmetry between what you were doing in Superman and the movie that just came out.
I have to tell you, I still haven't seen the movie, which is ridiculous. I know, it's shocking.
Hey, well, as you know, today it started streaming on Max. So
well, there you go. So now I'll have the chance to finally see it. We were joking before about how hard it is. I mean, to that, like, this summer has been packed, and so I've missed out on a lot. I've basically tried to keep to my deadlines, but I've missed out on a lot of things. So I'm eventually going to catch up. And
okay, fair enough.
I hear it's pretty good. So I'm
It
looking
is
forward
good.
to it.
No, I enjoyed it, and honestly, there are, without spoiling it all, just from a demeanor standpoint, even though Lois is there and everything, this is a younger Superman,
Yeah,
and I
that's
kind of
cool.
like that. And yeah, so it's that's good, and I like that aspect of it. James has a comment. He wants to know any Super Hulak content. You're gonna have to explain that to me. The former Tumblr crowd will consider you a legend if you do. What is Super Hulak?
I am fairly certain that he's referring to a supernatural thing, and now folks will be annoyed with me because I don't know all of the um, because I don't know it in detail. You know what I mean? So I can't actually give you a solid definition. So I'm still learning, but I'm guessing that, well, you know what? I just Googled it, and it says Super Hulak is the name of a fandom that is an inexplicable. That's what the thing says. An inexplicable conjoining of three other large TV show fandoms, namely Supernatural, Doctor Who, and Sherlock. Okay.
Oh, interesting.
Well,
Wow,
now we've learned.
that's a
Now we've
weird-
learned
that's-
something. I think.
Yeah.
I think the honest answer is the license that Dynamite has probably doesn't cover us making Doctor Who and Sherlock characters part of the story. So
You might be able to get away, given that Sherlock Holmes is public domain. To do something about Sherlock
yeah,
Holmes.
but I
Doctor
think,
Who definitely not. No.
yes, I think, and I don't think they're talking about public domain Sherlock. I think they're talking about TV show Sherlock. So,
Cumberbatch, yeah.
but you've given me something. You've given me a fun rabbit hole to dig into here. So
That's funny.
may not be able to satisfy this directly, but we will enjoy it together. How's that?
From a fan standpoint, were you a Doctor Who and were you a Cumberbatch Sherlock fan?
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. I got distracted there for a second. Was it?
Oh, no worries, man. That's all right. I'm boring. I don't blame you.
No. My eyes went to the Super Hulak thing there, and I got a little
I respect that.
got a little too immersed. Sorry, go on.
No, I was wondering though, for the other two components beyond Supernatural, are
Yeah.
you a Cumberbatch Sherlock and a Doctor Who fan?
I have not watched much of either of those shows either. The shows
Okay.
that I have watched the most recently, and I am, as for somebody who works in pop culture, I am sadly behind on much pop culture, largely because when you sign up to write comics, you're signing to monthly comics. You're signing up for homework for the rest of your life. So I am
Yeah,
always on deadline, and it is hard for me to see a movie, much less watch a whole season of a TV show or something like that. Um, and a lot of the pop culture I consume is because it relates to whatever project I'm working on. You know what I mean? Like I need to bone up on that. Um, uh, but the stuff that I have watched recently include I'm a sucker for Foundation. Sucker for Andor. I
cool.
mean, probably and I'm all caught up on both of those. I've actually watched those. I got probably the TV show that blew my mind the most over the last. I mean, this is already old, but over the last 4 years or so was Station 11. That I just actually blew me completely out of the water. I just love that show.
What streamer was that on?
That oh my gosh, I don't remember which streamer that was on. This
Was it
was the
Peacock?
it was the show that was about, I mean, it was based on the novel Station 11, and it's basically, it came out basically when the pandemic was beginning, and it was about a pandemic, you know. So
Oh wow.
in a lot of ways you would think this is not really
Yeah.
comforting and I don't really want to watch this. But but the vibe of, I mean, it was also just really funky and strange and quirky in not a sort of goofy, pretentious way, but just in a real sort of like, this is what happens in a bizarre world. In it was very human level to me, but also very specific and weird. I mean, ultimately, it like a big part of the show just centers around this kind of a post-disaster world where a traveling Shakespeare show is a troupe of Shakespeare players are traveling around this, this post-disaster world. I mean, and fun. It's just about people, and it's about relationships, and
Sure.
I just loved it. I loved it. So again, outdoor adventure to a certain extent.
Yeah, I
Uh,
get it. Sure.
but yeah.
That's interesting. I know, and it's funny when the pandemic hit, I was wondering, and I think I saw that a lot of people were going to Outbreak, the Dustin
Oh
Hoffman.
yeah. I didn't watch that. I remember I remember people were doing that, and I didn't watch that again until actually about 6 months ago. I was like,
Oh,
you know
funny.
what? Yeah. I finally, yeah, and I'm glad I didn't watch that again earlier. I don't think that would have
Yeah,
been
I don't think.
particularly
Yeah, I couldn't
comforting.
handle it while the pandemic was going on either.
Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely not. That's
Weirdly
funny.
enough, yeah, weirdly enough, Station 11 is I realized it's somebody asked what's your comfort show? And I actually Station 11 is kind of that, which sounds ridiculous for like in an ongoing pandemic for a show about a pandemic to be a comfort show, but it does have it is about characters who like there's some people trying to help each other. You know what I mean? Like
That's
that's
cool.
really at the core of
Yeah,
it. And there's something just very um what a beautiful fantasy that is, that in a world in which people help each
yeah,
other.
where people actually help
No, no,
each other.
but no, I mean that's the world I believe in, and I think that's the world we can make happen. But it's nice to see it
Yeah,
reflected in work sometimes like that. I
you
mean,
know,
oftentimes.
I couldn't bring myself to watch The Last of Us or play the game because it's
Oh
like,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
that sounds like a big downer, man. It's and again, I know it's critically acclaimed, and I'm thrilled for the people who love it. Not for me. So no,
Yeah, yeah.
I understand for the people who are like, yeah, maybe not. But hey, also though, I will say that truly beyond DC and Marvel, you've always done a great job with licensed properties.
Oh
Your
yeah.
John
Well,
Wick was great.
thank you, thank you, thank you. Yeah, it's fun. I mean, I came out of film. I went to NYU. I made short films. I made a big movie, or not a big movie. I made a independent movie,
Yeah,
and I'm always still working on film projects you don't hear about because you don't hear about them until we actually get them made. But there's always
attaboy.
something. But so I don't know. I have a real affinity for filmed entertainment. And so when I had a chance to, do these adaptations, it kind of made sense. You know what I mean? Like the also, what's actually makes doing these kinds of things sometimes easier than certain comics projects is that, like when I worked on the Firefly books, I had maybe, I had one short TV season to watch and one movie in order
Yeah.
to get pretty much caught up. You know what I mean?
Yep.
What I needed to
Yep.
know.
Sure.
I wrote the Hulk for 5 years. I will never be able to catch up on everything about the Hulk. You know what I mean? Like if you think about it, if you're writing the X-Men, there's just you can spend the rest of your life writing the X-Men and you will be hard pressed to catch up with all of the X-Men media that's been produced.
Yeah.
And yes, speaking of Hulk, you brought up the Planet Hulk cover, the Return to Planet Hulk. Should we plug that? Should we talk about that?
By all means, please.
So this is the cover to Planet Hulk World Breaker, which was a sequel story that we did, which is set 2,000 years after Planet Hulk. But coming up on this October, we've got a new book called Return to Planet Hulk because it's the 20th anniversary of the original Planet Hulk storyline. I know.
Wow.
Can you believe it? I can't.
No, I can't. Honestly, Greg, that's insane that it's been 20 years. I know it's close,
It's
but my God,
yeah.
that's when you and I first started talking to each other.
I
man.
know exactly. Well, now I guess the gray on our temples and in my beard tells the tale. So 20 years certainly have passed according to my beard, but yeah, no, it's really hard to even understand. But there we are. It's the 20th anniversary of Planet Hulk. Planet Hulk is the big storyline that we did in 2005, 2006 that told the story of what happens to the Hulk when a bunch of so-called heroes decide he's too dangerous for Earth and they shoot him into space and he ends up on an alien planet where he's forced to become a gladiator and then becomes he helps escape. It leads a revolution, and it's a huge, big, epic story, planetary romance, Planet Hulk, and
Yeah, and he comes back to Earth and he's pissed.
yes,
and
exactly.
He's got a cadre of other alien gladiators with him that are about to help him.
Yes,
No, dude, I'm telling you, Planet Hulk and World War Hulk, epic stuff, man. And I hear what you're saying about the breadth of the Hulk, entire franchise and stuff like that. But truly, it doesn't surprise me 20 years later that we're going to get a return. So, without spoiling, what happens? Yeah.
So the Return to Planet, it's a one shot. It's a oversized one shot, and it takes place. It's an in continuity story, never been told, that takes place in the middle of the Planet Hulk storyline. And we got back Carlo Pagulayan, who is the original artist of the first chapters of Planet Hulk, and Chris Sotomayor came back to color, and I believe, and Joe Caramagna also lettered, I believe, and yes, and so it's and Mark Paniccia, who was the editor back in the day, is the editor again, and so it was getting the old team back together, and it's just been a blast. So it takes place after issue 95, which is after the first 4 issues of Planet Hulk. There's this little moment where this story fits in, and you're going to see some pretty cool new things. It's a moment you're going to see a Hulk having kind of a frontier moment at this point in the story, he has helped he's basically freed the gladiators from the great arena, and headed off into the twisted wood, and all these people are following him. So now suddenly the Hulk, who just wants to be left alone, is being followed by hundreds of people. Who suddenly are expecting him to be their leader, and
kind of like a Spartacus kind of thing.
Yeah. But imagine Spartacus, and Spartacus doesn't want to have a damn thing to do with any of this. So it's about the Hulk. Can he trust these people? Can he trust himself, most specifically? There's these conflicting myths in Planet Hulk about the Soccer Son and the World Breaker, the Soccer Son who saves us and the World Breaker who destroys us all. Which one is the Hulk? And so this is the Hulk grappling with those questions. You are going to see something of the Hulk you've never seen on Planet Hulk. I won't go into that in more depth here. I'll let you find that out when you read it. And you're also going to see a community that we encounter in Planet Hulk, but don't in the original storyline, we didn't have as much time to explore it, but in this issue, you're going to see a lot more of that specific community. So, um, it's a big fun story, and I hope you enjoy it. And it comes out, I believe, on October 8th as well. Yes, it does come out
Oh,
on October 8th because I'm doing a
perfect.
signing. I'm doing a signing for it at Midtown Comics the day
Oh,
before.
great.
Yeah, the day before the New York Comic Con starts, that night before. So yeah, and if you're in New York, you don't have tickets to the con. Wednesday night, come on by for free and get your, like you don't have to pay a con price to come get your Planet Hulk, Return to Planet Hulk signed at Midtown Comics.
Boy, that sounds great. James, great line. I didn't come for
Oh,
a whisper. Come
yeah,
on. Yeah, and I
yeah,
was giving up to you, man. Yeah, Black Bolt and the Hulk on the moon.
that's
Johnny
yeah,
Ramita drawing that
yeah.
wonderful scene.
Well, John Romita told me later that line. Okay, so this is a point in Planet in World War Hulk when the Hulk is coming back to wreak vengeance on all these people, and he has a big fight with Black Bolt, and Black Bolt's voice, if he speaks, he can like knock down cities and everything, and he like Hulk sustains one of his attacks, where Black Bolt says the smallest word,
He
and
says stop.
and then
All he says
yeah,
is
yeah,
stop.
yeah.
And the sonic
Yeah,
reverberation from his voice is like a tornado hitting
yeah,
you.
yeah, yeah.
But it's the
And,
Hulk, and
and
he's
then
pissed, and he's
exactly. And the
go
Hulk
ahead.
says, I didn't come for a whisper. I want to hear you scream." And
Yes,
it was a big splash page with the Hulk looking, incredible,
yes.
all wrecked, but incredibly, badass and ready to tear. And John Romita Jr. told me later that line, when he read that in the script, that was when he was like, "Okay, I'm going to do this book." So,
It's
which was
fantastic.
which was great, So
Come on, man. Absolutely. No, that's huge. I get it. And really, that's like, yeah, he's been mad before and stuff, but really to be betrayed by the heroes, and also kind of in fairness, they're like, oh no, we're gonna dump them on this very nice pastoral planet. They'll
yeah,
be fine. And then of course something happens to the spaceship they popped him on, and
yep,
instead he winds up in Gladiator Planet, and it's like,
yeah.
all right, fine. Now, and it was really like Bruce. It really wasn't Bruce inside Hulk's body. This was really Hulk, but more
Yeah.
aware and more cognitive. Yeah, how would you describe his cognitive
Well,
ability, Hulk, in this
I
book?
mean, my take on Bruce and Hulk is probably a little controversial in the sense that I think that, like, they're the same person. Like, I don't think it's like
Okay,
I'm not really big on the concept of a split personality. I just think it's like, this is Bruce Banner who, he under different conditions, he's going to react differently. And so, I mean, he hates himself. And so, like this Hulk hating Branner is all part of that, right? He's racked with guilt for many reasons in his life, and so the fact that those two hate each other makes sense. That's his inner conflict. And to me, different versions of the Hulk come about because Banner's going through different things in his life. You know what I mean? Um, but like if when he's unable to deal with certain things, that's when you get the Hulk who can't even communicate. You know what I mean? Like can't talk. I mean
okay,
I mean this is the way I think about it.
yeah.
But
No, that's great.
so during Planet Hulk, the Hulk finds himself on a planet where he can be cut, he can bleed, he can conceivably be killed. So this isn't dumb Hulk. You know what I mean? This isn't Savage Hulk. In order to survive, he has to be he has to
Cunning.
let himself be a more cunning. Exactly. And so you get I mean, he kind of talks like Clint Eastwood. You know what I mean? Like he says very little, but he's always watching. You know what I mean? And he's making plans and figuring things out, trying to survive. And he's mad all the time. He's mad all the time, so he's not. He's the Hulk all the time. He's also the Hulk all the time because if he turns back into Banner, he'll get killed instantly by somebody.
Yeah.
So, uh, but yeah, so Banner, I mean, Banner as Banner appears twice during the course of the storyline. And when he does, it's for real specific reasons, and I think I mean, it makes a lot of sense, and it works. I'm really glad the way we pulled that off. But yeah, it was we were. I think you never know when a story is going to hit or if a story is really going to hit big. Um, And in retrospect, you can kind of see why, you know what I mean? Like with every single thing that we do, we are trying to make the very best book we can. And lots of times we make books we think are pretty freaking great, and yet they don't take off the same way. Sometimes you make a
Yeah,
book that you did your best on, but you know it's not perfect, and yet that book takes off. You know what I mean? Because it's the right place and the right time. Planet Hulk
sure.
was one of those things where it felt like all those things came together. I think we made what we felt was a real passionate book that we cared about deeply and we thought was pretty darn great. And somehow the world seemed to agree, and it really took off. I think one of the reasons it took off was because people were just ready for a Hulk centric story, you know, where you really spend most of your time with the Hulk as the Hulk. Um, there'd been this amazing run by Bruce Jones that had happened before, and that was really focused on Banner. You know, like you saw a whole lot of Banner, and it
Yeah,
was really cool, really cool. But you know, after folks have seen something for a while, they're ready for something
yeah.
else. And you know, and kind of similarly the way we did this, you know, this kind of sci-fi fantasy adventure Hulk, and then later on, you know, other creators took, you know, like the horror Hulk absolutely
Right.
took off. People were just ready for that. So
Sure.
different times, different incarnations. We were lucky to you know to hit at a time when people were feeling what we were throwing. So it was pretty sweet.
When you because you did a great novelization of the story as
Mm.
well. What areas of the story were you able to expand in the novelization that you
Oh
couldn't
wow,
do?
yeah. Well, the most significant thing is that we have a different ending to the novel, and it was, and I think folks who love Planet Hulk, I highly recommend the novel because if you love Planet Hulk, I think you're going to love the ending of the Planet Hulk novel. I'm not going to say any more than that, but it does.
Absolutely not. No, we want people to buy it, Rick. Absolutely.
but uh but we also were able just to get into people's heads more here and there. Actually, Amadeus Cho, who does have a
I
role
was
in
going to ask
Planet,
you about show.
yeah,
Absolutely.
he has a little bit more of an ongoing role in the novel, like as somebody who's always, you know, throughout the story, you kind of cut back to him trying to figure out how to help the Hulk, how to reach the Hulk and find the Hulk and help him home. Which was cool. You know, like it wasn't necessary in the comics. But in the novel, we had a little more room and it adds a little more dimension and it sort of helps to increase the sense of
Yeah.
possibility of different outcomes and different stories and increase the poignancy of certain moments. So that was great. And then we got to do just kind of fun things with ancillary characters. You know, like we had we had a lot of sort of stories within the story. You know, where different Imperial officers and people had these kind of big moments. Um, in individual issues, and in the novel we get to go into that in more depth and sort of flesh out those characters a little bit more and show what they're thinking, and that was just a ton of fun. And I think again it sort of deepens the feel of the world and increases the stakes, the emotional stakes for the whole thing.
You also there was also an audio dramatization of Planet Hulk.
Yes,
Did
yes.
you write that?
No, I did not, but
How
they
do you think
came
they
to
did?
I thought it was awesome. They
Because it's
did.
fully it's not just a narration, it is a full cast.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's a whole deal. It's really cool. They came to me, they wanted to know pronunciations of characters' names, which was fun.
Sure.
And then they also let me do I've got a little voice clip in there somewhere. They let me record a
Ah,
little line that they stuck in
little
there
cameo.
at some point. Yeah, yeah, it's funny.
Nice. That's hilarious. And also, what did you? I mean, and we might have discussed this before, but while we're on the subject and everything, obviously everyone knows that Thor Ragnarok had a lot of Planet Hulk in it.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
how do you think Taki Watiti did with the
Oh,
aspects of your story in
yeah, yeah,
his
yeah.
story?
I know this is a little controversial within the ranks of Hulk fandom, but I love the movie. I thought I mean, I've got a big goofy sense of humor, and I love stories that combine adventure and humor and heart. And it was, I mean, it's probably my favorite Marvel movie. You know what I mean? Just, I mean, I'm biased, of course, because it borrowed a lot
It's
of my
up there
stuff,
for me, man. It's certainly my
but
favorite Thor movie,
yeah,
and
yeah.
no, I think it's up there for my top five.
So I got a huge kick out of it. Of course, it doesn't have sort of the gravity. I mean, like the Planet Hulk part of it stuff does not have the gravity of the original Planet Hulk story. It
Sure.
doesn't. It's not that it because the story. I mean, the movie kind of takes that as half of its inspiration and takes other inspiration from other things, and so
Yeah.
it's kind of like like a setting, but less of it's not about that epic story. But which is fine, and and keeps hope alive that someday Marvel will hire me to write the like the whatever, the 20 episode prestige television version, or the three the 3 hour, the 3 hour movie trilogy of Planet Hulk for the big screen. I could write and direct that. I'm available. I'll play the
Where
red.
where
I'll even play the Red King if you want me to. So yeah.
where's Amadeus Show these days in the continuity? Do we know?
We just did because it's also Amadeus Cho's 20th anniversary. So a few months ago we had a 20th anniversary celebration book with Amadeus with 3 stories. And it was a that was a blast too. And I got to get
Good
back together
character.
with yeah, oh thanks. I got to get back together with
Yeah.
Tak Miyazawa, who is the original co-creator of that character. We did 3 different stories, one set during Amadeus's time with Hercules, a one set during Amadeus's time as the totally awesome Hulk, later on
Yeah.
down the
His
line.
his Hulk
And
persona
yeah,
certainly.
so we set different stories in different eras, and it was just yeah, it was a lark. It was fun, and in the end, Amadeus now has a set of armor that because he had taken on the powers of the Hulk to save Bruce Banner from his curse.
Yes.
And we did that for for a couple of years. That was Amadeus was the Hulk.
Yeah.
Eventually, and then he lost his mind. He hulked out because he's a Hulk. That happens. And then his powers kind of scaled back, and he became Brawn, and so he was sort of permanently in this. He basically is like got the body of a linebacker, not a linebacker, of like a quarterback or actually he's more like the body of a really bulked up NBA center. You know what I mean? He's like 7 feet
Okay.
tall, but he's not like muscle bound like that. He's
Right.
kind of
I'm the
slimmer, and he's
yeah.
he's pretty hot. He's pretty cool. But
Ron.
he's in control of his faculties and stuff.
Good.
But in one of these stories, he's still. I mean, the big thing with Amadeus is that he's young, and he's not really the reason he bonded with Banner in the first place is because he has impulse control issues, and he's not in control of his emotions all the time, and he's liable to, even though he's so brilliant, he makes all these goofy mistakes because he can't control his emotional life. And that's kind of the ongoing theme of his whole thing. That's why we love that kid. But at the end of this storyline, he's got this set of armor that will appear around him if he starts to freak out. You know what I mean? If he starts to lose his temper, this instead of him hulking out and becoming dangerous and becoming a savage Hulk who could wreck things, this armor he's basically got this kind of nanobot thing going around where he'll look normal, but then if he gets over emotional in a dangerous way, this technology will absorb that energy and turn it into armor that surrounds him. It's like literal emotional armor. How about that?
Interesting.
But it's it's a fun kind of new power and look that's based on emotion, which is what the Hulk stuff should be. You know what I mean? Like if you're going to do
Yeah.
something with the
Yes.
Hulk, it should be based on some kind of emotional control issues. So so there's new possibilities with Amadeus there.
Take me back to that period when you were when Amadeus Cho was the Hulk. Riri Williams was
Yeah.
essentially Ironheart.
Yeah.
And all the major heroes. I think Sam Wilson was Cap during
Yeah.
that period as well, and everything. And obviously that was slightly controversial. I will even say from my own opinion, Greg,
Mhm.
I thought it was great that these characters became these legacy characters. My only complaint was I wanted room for both. And
Yeah.
I wanted Bruce to be there with Amadeus. I wanted
Yeah.
Steven and Sam to be together, and I wanted Tony, other than just being the ghost in the machine,
Yeah.
to be there for Riri as well. So,
Yeah.
what was that like when you were writing that? I'm sure you got some pushback from some of the fans.
Well, yeah, I kind of ignored it. I mean,
Good.
I was
Hey,
like,
that's the best course.
I can't,
Yeah.
like no matter what you do, somebody is not going to be happy with it. But
Sure.
like I think the fans know that I freaking love Bruce Banner. You know what I mean?
Of course you do. Yeah.
And uh, and so we had. I mean, and I appreciate the goodwill that folks gave us and the room they gave us. And we did these, as part of that run. I mean, uh, there were bigger storylines going on in the Marvel universe and Bruce got killed.
Yes, I
And
remember. Yeah,
but as part of our whole thing, we made the most of that, and we really, we so much of that, the first part of that series centered around Bruce's murder and death,
sure, sure.
and Amadeus had, there was a send off. I mean, we did a whole 3-issue thing, and Amadeus's reactions to that and how that affected all the rest of the Hulk cast. So Bruce may not have, at a certain point Bruce was dead, but he was still reverberating through the book, which totally felt appropriate. And but yeah, and at the same time, then the you know characters have to grow and develop and be the characters they're going to be. And so we had other stories that were not Bruce centric, and all kinds of other things happened, and it was great. I mean, the thing about and I totally get it, you know what I mean, like, if you're really um committed to certain characters, if those are the characters you really want to see, then you're not, you're under no obligation to jump onto something new if that's not going to do what you want to do. And then one of the nice things about comics is that I mean, I don't know if I'm supposed to say this, but stuff comes back. You know what I mean? Like most of the characters who get killed off will eventually come back, and
Of course.
there's always going to be another bite of that apple, and cool things going to happen again. And also, we gotta have room to breathe and try new things all the time. You know what I mean? And
Great.
not everything is going to swing. But
Yeah.
we're gonna have fun trying, and hopefully folks will have fun reading it. Uh, and I have hugely appreciated folks who have, given all the different stuff I've done with these different characters over the years a shot. Um, I absolutely, the Hulk fans have been amazing. I mean, I've had so many people talk about, like, I mean, and I mean all the Hulk fans. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, because there are fans who love the Planet Hulk stuff, the Bruce Banner stuff. There are fans who loved Amadeus. There are
Sure.
fans who love Scar. Like,
Of course, Scar.
I've had Scar, Son of Hulk, who's another, Hulk that
Son
we've
of Hulk.
introduced.
Yes.
Exactly. But and folks who have been, I've at different cons and signings, folks who have been really who've cared a lot about those characters have said some things to me that really blew my mind and really moved me. I mean,
That's great.
I had somebody tell me that, well, yeah, that the Scar story, for example,
Yeah.
really,
Let's talk about Scar, please.
there was somebody who told me that story just really meant a lot to them because they had a really fraught relationship with their parent. And Scar's whole thing is he'd been abandoned by his father, who never knew he existed on this
Absolutely.
this wrecked planet, alien planet, and he's just hell bent on coming and punishing this father who abandoned him. So it's all about, about abandonment, and
Yeah.
it's really also about domestic violence, because
Well,
because Bruce's whole thing is also that he was
uh,
beaten by his father, and so he's kind of
absolutely.
terrified of fatherhood and terrified of what he
And
could do.
Bruce
And
Bruce became the thing exactly that
yeah,
unfortunately, like, frustrated him,
yeah.
and now he's a deadbeat dad in a weird way.
Yeah.
So
So
yeah,
all of that, I mean, I I love writing the Hulk also because, like, all of that emotional stuff is that's just part of the character. That Peter, like, folks like Peter David, may he rest in peace,
indeed.
uh, just brought unvarnished emotion into these stories, without any, irony or hesitation, and that's been there from the very beginning. When you have a character, well, not from the very, very beginning. I mean, in the very, very beginning, Hulk was really a werewolf who came out at
Yeah,
night.
it's Jekyll
You know
and
what I
Hyde.
mean? Yeah, exactly. But then, fairly soon they kind of figured out, like, emotion's going to be the trigger here, and that I think when they kind of cracked that, anything was possible. And I think the Hulk is one of the simplest Marvel characters and the very best,
I
because that simple connection of emotion, to this, as a trigger for this character, gives you just so many different things you can do, and so many different kinds of stories you can play with. So
did
I
you
I love
ever
it.
did you ever have a chance to talk to Peter directly about the character?
Oh, yeah. I did.
Tell me what
Well,
what you gleaned from those conversations.
I mean, Peter was a showman, right? And so Peter had
Sure.
like kind of set stories he loved to tell on panels and all of
Sure.
that. So it was mostly hearing him, tell those stories several times but they've been impressed in my mind. But I mean, he was totally right, and had so much fun talking about those first 4 issues of the Hulk, the original Hulk series from 1962, right? And
Yeah.
and the fact that everything that he did, like the way Peter would say it, is everything that he did in his run was done in those first few issues. You know what I mean? Like, and so he was just like playing with the immense possibility that was present in this character from the beginning. And I mean, Peter is famous for how long was it? Like a 10-year run on the Hulk or something like that?
Yeah,
I don't
hundreds
even
of
remember.
issues. Yeah, man.
And for just introducing all these different incarnations of the Hulk and playing with I mean, he had all these like Joe Fixit, Professor Hulk, and like he had all these different ways of playing
Yes.
with the character. But he would say, in those first few issues, you had the kind of Savage Hulk who's out of control. You've got the underpinnings of the Joe Fixit Hulk, who basically talks like, because the Hulk in those first few issues he basically talks like Jimmy Cagney. You know what I mean? And he's like he's literally saying things like, it's like this, see? You know what I mean? like
Yes.
You don't know what you're talking about, kid. I mean, I could find the thing and find the actual issue and do that better. But so that kind of, that kind of hard ass, smart talking gray Hulk, the core of the germination of that is right there. And then he's also the werewolf Hulk, and he's the funniest thing I remember Peter saying was that, because Peter had a thing where Professor Hulk was basically like the Hulk's big savage body, but with a kind of handsome face and head, like kind of normal looking, not like savage looking face and head, and intelligent mind. You know what I mean? Like he had all the faculties of Banner, so he was like sort of the best of the best, right? But Peter joked about the fact that in that and I'm going to get this wrong, but there's some kind of scene in those first few issues. I think it might be in issue 4 or something, where there is a Hulk. What is it? Hulk for some reason hasn't transferred fully, and he's wearing, like, he has a Banner head, but the Hulk body. But then he doesn't want people to know that, and so he puts on a Hulk mask on top of that.
Yes.
And so there's a point where so he's like the Savage, and they pull off the mask, and he's got like the normal head, and it's like Peter's like, it's all there, it's all right there, So I don't know. It's
true.
Hilarious. Like that stuff is
I remember they did in the cartoon, in the old Marvel superheroes cartoons, they showed that, which was insane. But I mean, and I love those cartoons. I have no apologies on my part for loving those cartoons.
Yeah.
I know it was limited animation. Who the fuck
Exactly. No. It's like, you got to love that stuff. I mean,
Absolutely.
so Peter was great at. I mean, Peter told hilarious stories, but also at the core of that story is giving credit to the original creators. You know what I mean? Like he's crediting like Stan and Jack for trying all this fun stuff and creating. The other thing that Peter would say is that in that first issue of the Hulk, it's incredible because issue number 1, you introduce Hulk, Banner, General Ross, Betty Banner, Rick Jones, and Glenn Talbot. So it's it's a full cast. It's everybody you need. You know what I mean? It's a full supporting cast, and all of those characters except for Glenn Talbot, who had an untimely end, remain core to that character through the very end. You know what I mean? To this
today.
Yeah,
exactly. Today, absolutely. Like Philip's still playing with Betty and everything in his current run.
Exactly. And that that's kind of an astonishing achievement to sort of like in that very first issue to have so fully figured out that supporting cast, to have created a supporting cast that is so right for the character and provides so much interpersonal dynamic that can be sustained for all these years. I mean, so many of the comics that we love so much, the supporting cast that is the current supporting cast is very different from what was there at the very beginning. Sometimes it's the same, but there's just a lot of development. I mean, I mean, so much of like Superman's ethos or stuff comes. Actually, this is more about Superman's powers and stuff that developed over time enormously. I mean, I guess most of Superman's supporting cast was there pretty early, right? I'm trying to remember
Well,
that first issue of
well,
Superman.
Lois was, and
Lois.
there was an editor, but
Right.
Jimmy came a couple of years later. And
There you go.
So yeah,
That's
no,
it. Yeah,
took a
exactly,
while.
exactly.
And, and truly, Greg, the other thing too is that, and diehard Hulk fans will likely know this, but if you're just a general fan, they did 6 issues of the Hulk, and it kind of failed.
Yeah.
So they stepped away from it for a while, and then
Yeah.
came back to it. But you're absolutely right; those first 6 issues, for being Silver Age stories, had a lot of depth in them.
Yeah.
Despite being Silver Age stories and everything, I completely agree.
I mean,
So,
you just got this great foundation, and so I'm gonna do Peter a solid, and also sort of as a tribute to Peter. Peter gave all those guys credit. I want to give Peter credit because so much of the work that I did would not have been possible without contributions of Peter David and Bill Mantlo in particular. You know what I mean? Because I spent so much time thinking about Bruce Banner's relationship to his father and Scar's relationship to Bruce, and those family dynamics were established by Bill Mantlo and Peter, and that whole family history of abuse was something that those two writers really fleshed out and built into the character, which is essential to that character. I think when you think about a character who's motivated and terrified by his own anger, like this whole like having this father who is a furious abusive father, like those things, that feels like an essential part of understanding the character, and they brought that to the character fairly late in the game, and that's so key. I mean, that was key to my run anyway. So thank you to both Bill Mantlo and Peter David.
When you created Amadeus Cho, was there an editorial edict? Because it's great. Obviously, people likely know that Greg is Korean, and Amadeus Cho is Korean, which is great. And now and truly, I beyond Cho, I'm hard pressed to think of Korean heroes in Marvel or DC. Greg, you help me out.
Well, yeah, no, there definitely are some more. I think Amadeus. I mean, so Amadeus came about because the editors had this notion of giving some new to Marvel writers, a shot at taking an old Marvel name, from like a timely name from the 40s or 50s, and reimagining that as a character now. So I took this name Mastermind Excello just because I thought it was so big and goofy, and it just made me think of like some brainiac kid. And then and Amadeus Cho came out of that. I knew that. I mean, I'm a Korean American writer, and I have always tried to include folks in my stories that look like the folks in the world that I inhabit. So I mean, not just Asian Americans, but all kinds of folks. I'm
Sure.
like that's. But yeah, I mean, I definitely have had a special eye open for putting non-stereotypical and three-dimensional Asian American characters into the world. And in particular, at that moment, I was like, Marvel does not have an Asian American kid who talks too much. And I mean, the talks too much was just like I've been writing these kind of terse characters, and I wanted a character who just like said everything that was in his head. Also because that goes against one of the Asian American stereotypes. This idea of like inscrutable. You know what I mean? Like the stoic, silent Asian,
I get it.
wise Asian person. I wanted just a kid who flapped his yap all the time and got into trouble because of it. And that's so those are some of the origins of Amadeus. I loved it because I was coming out of film, where I'd made this independent movie and I was trying to get these other movies made, and these scripts I had were had characters all different backgrounds. Most of them had Asian American leads, and in 2005, nobody wanted to give any money to any movie that had an Asian American lead because they couldn't conceive of how they were going to finance it or who'd come see it. And I'm like, demographics are such that in 15 years this will be inevitable, but they couldn't see it at the time. And so, but when I came to Marvel and and I got this chance to create this new character and I pitched this Amadeus Cho story, people were just like, cool, let's do it. It was literally like, all right, cool. No one ever said, can we not make him Asian? You know what I mean? It was just
Thank
like,
God. Yeah.
this is cool. Why not? Let's do it.
Yeah.
And there wasn't, no one even said, why is he Asian? You know what I mean? Like, it was just like, this is cool. Let's do it. And I love that. Like, like in comics, and not every comic story goes like that. I'm sure creators have had all kinds of trouble getting stuff made. But in this story, it was this kind of beautiful thing where I, got two people to say yes, and suddenly we were doing this, and 20 years later, that dude's co-starring in, I think, 2 different TV shows right now. And like, there's the Spidey and His Amazing Friends, and there's also a kids show, there's an Iron Man show that has Amadeus in it. There's like, I've got Amadeus action figures and bobbleheads, you know what I mean? Like, it's a little wild. Well, I mean, very specifically, multiple Asian American actors have gotten work because Tak and I co-created Amadeus Cho back in the day. So it's fun. I mean, the biggest moment for me with that was there was a signing that I did in Philadelphia, and for the Amadeus, for the Totally Awesome Hulk book that Amadeus was the star of. This was a few issues into the run, and I go to the signing, and this little kid comes up, little Asian American kid with glasses, and I'm like, this could be a mini me, and he had a poster, an Amadeus, like a Totally Awesome Hulk poster that he wanted me to sign, and that in itself was absolutely adorable. But then he handed me the thing, and it's like, and the poster had like tape marks on the edges, and I literally almost started crying because it's like, this kid took this poster, had this poster on his wall, and took it down to bring it to get it signed. You know what I mean? And that was, that's that.
Yeah.
I mean, people talk about, like, it's almost a cliche, representation matters, and sometimes we overplay that. I've got a friend who says representation is not liberation, and that's absolutely true. You can have tons of representation and yet still kind of be beat down and oppressed in a million ways.
Marginalized.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But it still matters. You know what I mean? So that's, I mean, it's been all the adventures I've had with that character have just meant a lot to me.
Well, and honestly, man, I always used to give it up to Marvel, and my exposure to Jimmy Woo was in that original What If about the 1950s Avengers. That's where I first saw it. And I know the problematic background of a character like the Yellow Claw.
Yeah.
And of course, horrible.
Yeah.
But we had Jimmy Woo.
Yes.
Jimmy Woo was just a cool secret agent.
Yes. No, Jimmy Woo was awesome. And those early Jimmy Woo stories are hilarious. Like, he's fighting like all these unbelievably weird things. Like what is it, like Little Chicken Man or something? I can't even remember now. But the's like,
I don't know. I mean? It's like, Marvel, I hope Marvel Unlimited still has some of the early stuff.
Yeah, I know
it can get problematic. But, honestly, man, this is something I was talking about with Ram V from an Indian standpoint.
Yeah.
The tropes are there, and the question is the solution is what a modern writer can do is take these characters, give them more agency, and not have the bad stereotypical stuff.
Yeah.
I was just talking to Jimmy Zub about Robert Howard and Conan and everything.
Oh, yeah.
And a lot of the other non-Conan characters that, again, can get very problematic in terms of the stories they were in. But it's like, you can strip all that away, still have a great foreign intrigue story where the natives are not ugh, and really, again, are bringing their culture to a problem in a way that it wasn't in the 30s and 40s and 50s stories. Yep. And that's why, again, I was thrilled when Randall Park was playing Jimmy Woo on the Marvel TV shows and in the movies. It's like, hey, man, there's my guy. I love this guy.
It's interesting because as a person of color or as a person from a marginalized community who has established credits and is working in
Yes.
this kind of field, you're going to get approached to work on some properties that deal with these characters. And I mean, sometimes I call these reclamation projects, right? Because you're basically trying to clean up like the objective of the IP owner is to clean up this property so it's not so freaking racist, so they can make some money off it,
Yeah.
because there's some nostalgia attached to it, right? And
Sure.
sometimes that's a fantastic opportunity. Sometimes I say no, because sometimes I think
Okay.
some of these characters are too far gone, and
Interesting.
and also and maybe somebody else can do it, but I'm not the person to.
Hey,
And so sometimes I'm just tired too. You know what I mean? It's
I'm gonna,
like
I'm
it's
gonna,
like it can be exhausting to deal
yeah.
with. I mean, there was a time during the I mean, yeah, we'll go there during the pandemic when there was all this anti-Asian violence, and I was not interested in doing. I mean, there was a project I said no to because it would have required me to look at a lot of old comics that were full of anti-Asian racism, and the intention of the project was a good one, to kind of like confront that and deal with it. But you know what? This was when people were getting shot in Atlanta and people were getting pushed into the subways, in front of trains in the subway, and I didn't want to. Like I wasn't going to be there for that. I didn't want to do that kind of work. I didn't want to try to clean up that character at that time. So there are different times when, on the other hand, I got a chance to do a James Bond story, and I actually pitched, because I was asked, like, is there a James Bond villain you think would be fun to work with? And I was like, oh man, Odd Job. Let's make Odd Job sexy. And that's what we did. You know what I mean? Because years ago I read a Maxine Hung Kingston book where she talked about that, and that just stuck in my head forever. That you put any character up on a screen that big, you can make the audience fall in love with that character. Odd Job is this basically a racist joke in the books. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's kind of awesome in the movie because he's played by this big Asian
Harold
dude. Yeah.
Harold Tanaka, a
Yeah,
fantastic '60s wrestler.
exactly,
Absolutely.
exactly. And he's got, I mean, his gimmick in the movie is that he's got a bowler hat that he throws like a frisbee and it cuts your head off.
Right. It's got a
So
razor edge to it and everything. Absolutely.
he is a joke, but at the same time, Maxine Hong Kings is writing about this, and she's like, put that face on the big screen. That Odd Job shouldn't be a joke. She's writing from the point of view of an Asian character who's saying, like, I should learn how to walk from watching this guy. Women should fall in love with him. You know what I mean? And it's true. You can do that.
Yeah.
That's the power of storytelling. And so I was like, we're gonna freaking do that in comics, and we did, and it was amazing. We made Odd Job hot and sexy and a rival for James Bond. It was basically structured like a romantic comedy. You know what I mean? Like a romantic comedy where it's
That's
like,
great.
that man drives me crazy, and then by the end of it, they're gonna be together. This was sort of like, these two super spies drive each other nuts. And then by the end of it, they're working together. You know what I mean? But
Oh my God. Yeah.
there's always that friction. And Odd
I
Job
gotta
is sort
find
of
that
like,
story, Greg.
yeah. Oh yeah, you'll dig it. You're old school. You know what I mean?
I'm a big,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm
So,
a
but
big Bond freak. So
yeah, that story also, actually, that's our retelling of the whole Goldfinger thing too. So it's fun. But
Oh, that's
anyway,
great.
but
Like a different perspective on the
yeah. It's
Wonderful.
kind of a
That's what
modernization
I'm
and a
saying,
different
man.
thing.
There
Yeah.
you go.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's
So
great. Yeah.
so sometimes that's a ton of fun to do, and it's cool to have that opportunity.
Sure.
And then also, and then creating new characters from scratch, of course, is when you have the chance to do that, that's where the real gold can shine. But it's no, it's been fun. It's jumping on. I just jump on the chances as they come and see where they take me.
Well, again, I honestly, I really appreciate this portion of the conversation because I am always interested what writers of color and artists of color
Oh yeah.
think. And again, you're taking a stereotype and turning it into an opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, I'll reiterate, I'm not always going to do that. Sometimes I'm just going to say no, but
No, and I
sometimes,
respect.
sometimes
Can
I'm
I
like,
ask?
yeah,
Can I ask, like is Fu Manchu? Sorry, no, thanks. Or
yeah.
I mean, I'm
Well,
wondering if I
actually,
don't know if you want to mention a character that or and it's okay if you don't.
yeah. Well, I'm not gonna name the character that I actually said no to, because I don't want
Okay,
to, like that doesn't seem fair. I mean, Fu Manchu is interesting, in that there actually is a take on Fu Manchu that I nearly did in the because I did in Totally Awesome Hulk. I did this storyline where all the Asian American characters get together and just hang out and like sing karaoke and have barbecue, Korean barbecue, and then New York gets attacked by aliens and they have to fight this alien
All
warlord.
right.
There was a point when I was considering basically having a Fu Manchu style character be the big villain there. But I ended up just like it was just too much to try to fit into the story. But I still have this thing in the back of my head where there's a supervillain like a Fu Manchu. But you know what? The Iron Man movie kind of scooped this because the Iron Man movie that had Ben Kingsley as the Mandarin was kind of playing the same note. And I mean, so my idea was that you have a Fu Manchu character who is not the stereotype, but who is using the stereotype in order to scare white people. You know what I mean? And so it's like leaning into that racist trope of the yellow peril, terrifying like Asian villain.
Sure.
Just in order to terror, to using that and the Asian heroes who fight him are particularly annoyed because it's like he's not only doing just like normal supervillain stuff, whatever, trying to take over the world or steal, like rob Fort Knox or whatever the hell it is, but he's like spreading bad stereotypes that hurt all of us. You know what I mean? But that was so yeah, maybe I'll play with that someday. But but for that particular story, it was a little too much to try to wedge in there.
Well, honestly, as a white guy reading because I read some of the Sax Rohmer stuff. I went tonight, and of course I read Shang-Chi back in the day and everything when Marvel had the license and he was the big bad in the Shang-Chi book. And I get, listen, there was a lot of stereotypical stuff in there, unfortunately. But I always regarded Fu Manchu as an Asian Moriarty.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because sometimes it also comes down to just physically the way these comics were drawn. You know what I mean? And the caricatures and the coloring. I mean, Larry Hama has an amazing story he tells all the time where he only Asian guy working in mainstream comics as a writer and then as an editor. And when he got a job as an editor, he like went to the to the office and he was like, went to talk to the folks who were coloring the books or dealing with that. He was like, and he pointed out, like he's pointing to these characters, Asian characters who were literally colored like this light shaded yellow. And basically Larry was like, why don't we not do that? And then they stopped doing that. You know what I mean? But it was like, it took a dude walking in there to say that's not what we should be doing for people to I mean, so some of that is just based on ignorance and it's just like inherited racism from just generations of how people would draw people of other backgrounds.
Tradition of it not being an issue until someone brings the attention to it and says, hey, this is wrong. And it's like, yeah, you're right. Sorry about that. Literally, it's like, okay.
Yeah. I mean, it's also, I mean, I think that's also linked to World War II propaganda, anti-Asian, like Will Eisner, who is revered in the comics industry. Our freaking Oscars are named after him, drew a lot of incredibly racist war propaganda. And also
Ebony White, anybody?
Exactly. Exactly.
I mean, sorry, that's part of the story. Absolutely. And I'm sorry to people of color. I mean, sorry, white folks. That's part of our.
No, I get you. Yeah. No, so but that kind of this sort of like ways of drawing Asian people have come from a lot of different sources, and some of those sources have been really racist, and then later on like non-racist people would sometimes just incorporate that because that was the way that was just the only way they saw them drawn, and not just drawing them but then coloring them. And then there's also this kind of weird thing where then there's also the extreme sensitivity to those things that can screw up depictions too, like a fear of drawing people with so Asian eyes, right? Like this is not something that's comfortable for people to talk about, but you got to talk about it if you're going to draw Asian people. And Asian people have a lot of different kinds of eyes. You know what I mean? Like if you look at actual Asian people, like, I mean, you've got some people who have who have monolids, which are the upper lids do not have a fold in them. Some people have a fold in their upper lid. And also just like, some people's eyes, tilt this way, some people's eyes tilt that way, some people's eyes don't tilt at all. You know what I mean? I mean, white people
I
have
know
all kind of
exactly what
different
you mean.
eyes. So do Asian people. You know what I mean? But
Yes, yes,
but lots of times artists are scared to draw anything but the most sort of generic
yeah,
looking kind of Asian face, and as a result, I mean, and oftentimes that's actually like almost like a half Asian face. I mean, it's a face that looks more like I'm biracial. I'm half Korean and half white, and so I will often see Asian characters drawn in a way that look like me, like half Asian people, and it's like, okay, that's fine, but there are literally millions upon millions of Asian people who have who don't
different.
look like that. And so
Right.
like, but then people are scared to draw like that because they're scared to look too like that will tilt into previous depictions, racist depictions of Asian people. You know what I
I
mean?
know.
So it
I
is
know
a
exactly.
it is a tricky thing.
Yeah.
And as a writer and as somebody who's working with artists, I've had to learn how to just be really upfront and matter of fact. Also, like noses, you know what I mean? Like Asian people tend to have flatter, broader noses, and
Yes.
beautiful. Still, you know what I mean? But
Of course.
lots of
Of
artists
course.
are lots of artists will draw people with sort of like Asian-looking eyes, but then like a kind of perky little nose that tilts up, like a English princess nose, and like I've literally, like I mean that's anyway. And some Asian people do have noses like that, but most don't. You know what I mean? And
I'm
so
gonna,
let's
no.
like embracing that
Yeah.
diversity and find, I don't know. So that's an
Right.
ongoing struggle. I mean, I'll tell
No,
you one.
and truly, I first, Greg, seriously, it means a lot that you're willing to talk about this
Oh yeah,
because
yeah.
I do think we need to talk about this to understand where people are coming from,
Yep.
the problems they have with depictions and things. I forgive me, and I hope it's okay to ask one more question
Yeah,
regarding
yeah, yeah,
this.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
It
yeah.
always seemed to me that when Ditko was originally drawing Doctor Strange, he
Oh yeah,
looked
yeah,
very
yeah. Yeah, 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 totally. Well, that's always been one of my dreams is to like reveal Doctor Strange being half Asian because he
yeah,
totally is drawn as an Asian dude. Also,
well,
Namor.
beginning, but now he's very Anglo looking, isn't
Yeah,
he?
yeah, yeah, totally, totally. Well, yeah, I also, and I mean, this is also goofy, but like, I always thought like Tony Stark he should be Latino. His mother's name's Maria. Like
Why
he should
not?
be, his like make his mother Latina and make him, like he's biracial. But if I ran the world, but there's yeah, no, I mean I mean these same issues come up with like when people are drawing black characters, black creators will talk all the time about like hair, you know what I mean? And like the way,
Yes,
like hair is
sure,
often drawn really badly for black characters and all of that. I
sure.
mean, so these are just, things that we all, I think I love it when we can just talk about it and work on it. You know what I mean? And,
I bet.
and, and
Yeah,
I've kind of found over the years that just like learning not to be shy and just like saying, hey, and it's not about like jumping down anybody's throat. It's just about like, hey, like, let's look at this. And I
yeah.
mean, but when I was talking about second guessing, I had this wild experience where I've been thinking about this stuff for years. You know what I mean? So I'm always so careful, and I'm always like trying to. So I worked on this book, and it was literally, like had just come out, and suddenly I was like, holy crap! Did we make these characters, these Asian characters with yellow skin? You know what I mean? And no, we didn't. But we had this variety of Asian characters in this book. We had like an Asian artist, Asian colorist. I was the writer. You know what I mean? So we had this like Pan Asian, creative team. And then suddenly I was looking at the cover of the book, and I was like, these characters look kind of slightly yellow. Like, I mean, different characters are like different Asian people have different skin tones, right? And
Of
so
course.
the colorist
Yeah,
was doing that, was giving people different skin tones. But I was looking at these characters, and then I was freaking out about this. It's like because yellow is such a charged color and charged word when it comes to depictions of Asian people, particularly in comics, particularly in like art. Um, and and I was like, I was kind of dying inside. And then I was like looking in the mirror, and my own skin has yellow undertones. You know what I mean?
okay.
It just
Yeah,
does. It just does. I
right.
have yellow undertones because some people do. And I was looking at my own skin, and I was looking at the covers like, these characters look like me. You know what I mean? Like, what am I doing? But it's because I wouldn't have ever thought of that. It would never have occurred to me if it hadn't been the fact that there have been racist yellow depictions of Asian people, like
Absolutely.
canary yellow. We weren't doing canary yellow. We were doing like realistic yellow undertones in some characters. Like if we colored every single Asian person that way, that might have been a little
That's a
weird.
problem.
But all these different characters had different skin tones, which is because that's people in real life. You know what I mean? Like, so,
Sure.
but yeah, I mean, like this stuff can really, get into your head. And
Well, and truly, I feel for people of color that unfortunately, because of the way things have been depicted, that you are conditioned to maybe have a reflexive, wait a minute, what are we doing? And I absolutely get it, Greg. And truly, I'm glad we're talking about it, honestly.
I appreciate you. We've always talked about this kind of stuff, and I mean, I love you for that because we're always, I mean, it's a good space to talk about all kinds of things, and this is just part of the business. We're in a visual storytelling business, and we're in a world with everybody, and so figuring this all out is important.
We want the world represented by everybody, and by the same token, there is this history of bad depictions. So, like you said, it's a tightrope, and I sympathize as much as a white guy can. Seriously, I mean, I have a lot of in me being Mediterranean, man. Not much.
Yeah, I was gonna say, have you ever gotten really angry about the way a Greek person was? Did we screw up how we did Hercules?
Hercules is fine.
Okay,
Hercules is great.
Good.
Are you kidding? We were all very happy with I do love the various shades of Hercules we've gotten over the years, whether he's hero or villain and stuff like that. And it's like, hey man, those mythology stories, that's why I was so happy when Kelly Sue had like the Greek gods, and especially Hercules as a real asshole. And it's like it fits. It could be a dick. I love Marvel Hercules. I'm glad and I love his bravado and everything about him. That's wonderful that they depict that. So that's funny. Too funny. All right, here we can wrap up, but somebody bring up James wanted to know where we start to write Darth Vader. A different person of color. But black, just not that, but not African American or other black. I find it interesting how the series has the main character at a remove.
I get it. He's because he's like Vader is the central character, but Vader doesn't talk a lot. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? Okay. So Vader's, and the supporting cast is really big in that story. Vader is a challenge, but I loved writing Vader. I mean, I think this question gets to that, in that Vader's story is the central story of Star Wars, or at least of those first 6 episodes of the movies. You know what I mean? Lucas described that as the tragedy of Darth Vader, right? Like that, or the tragedy of Anakin Skywalker.
Sure.
That's the big arc that defines all those stories. And so Vader's story is kind of set. So when you're telling stories that are between the movies, like we did, you've got to find compelling things that you can do that do not step on the big moments that are shown in the movies, and that's a challenge, you know what I mean? Like, but the folks at Lucasfilm and the folks at Marvel were fantastic, and the Lucasfilm gave us the green light to do some really cool stuff. All I need when I'm doing this kind of story is a little window in time in the continuity, and an emotional hook, something where I can take a character from here to there. You know what I mean? Something that matters, something that we can dig into, where a character can change a little bit. There's something can happen. And what they gave me, what they let us do was explore that time between Empire and Return, when Vader ends Empire sort of full of rage because his son has rejected him. He's offered, he's identified himself to Luke as his father, and he's like, come with me, together we'll overthrow the Emperor, we will rule the galaxy together. You know what I mean? And Luke is like, no, we won't, I would rather die. And so we got to explore Vader's reaction to that. In the movies, it's like when you're a kid watching those movies in the 70s and 80s, like we were, your focus was on Luke. You know what I mean? Because it's, because you're a kid, you're watching the story, and Luke feels like the main character, and it's about it's this horror of finding out your father's a monster, and like how are you going to deal with that? And then ultimately Luke redeems Vader, in the end, and that's like that's that story. But for Vader, it's like, what do you do if you've exposed your whole self and your son has rejected you? And what makes it even deeper is that when you look at when you really look at the prequels and everything that happened before that, Vader was rejected twice before, or lost the most important people in his life twice. His mother and and Padme. You know what I mean?
Padme,
So
yeah.
it's like so he's losing people, like, and so to lose Luke again, that's like, three strikes, and so where is Vader emotionally through? That's what our whole storyline was about. So, and that just gave us so much. And then they let us use Sabe. Sabe is that was my big thing. I was like, I gotta have a character in here who's emotionally resonant, who means something. Like when I was building that cast, and Sabe is the handmaiden who is trained to look just like Padme, and she knows all
Oh,
Padme's secrets.
yes, yes,
Um,
of course. I didn't know her name.
yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And she's played by Keira Knightley in the actual movie. So we take that character, and basically when Vader first sees her, he thinks she's Padme, but she's actually Sabe, and she thinks Vader killed Padme, so she's coming to try to kill Vader. And all kinds of stuff happens as a result. But that was the emotional hook. You know what I mean? So that made it possible to do this Vader story. Sort of more directly back to, I think it was James's question about, like, what was it like writing a character who's sort of, at a remove. Um, I had to figure out a way to get into Vader's head without having Vader just like say what he's thinking, because you can't do normal, like little
Yeah.
voice captions for Vader, which is like, well, I
Yeah.
woke up and I was feeling a little off. You know what I mean? Like that. That's not, you can't do that with Vader. But I did use those little voice captions, but I did them like almost like abstract poetry. It's just like words that are going through his head. You know what I mean? So it would, and that was a carefully done thing. It was literally like writing poetry, because you can't,
Cool.
like, oftentimes they're not complete sentences. They're kind of little, just inchoate expressions of emotion, but they kind of fill you in a little bit more. And then we also did a lot of stuff just with silence, just, and Raf Ienko is the artist and was brilliant, because we had a character who you almost never saw his face, but he was finding the right angles and the lighting so that you would be able to read this emotion into, we have all these moments where, like, Vader's betrayed or, lost or something like that, and you can't have Vader being like, oh, I feel bad, but just with the angle and the way we stage it, you feel something. Whether or not Vader is actually feeling that remains a question. You know what I mean? But
Yeah,
and we wanted to do that, to kind of leave that ambiguity as well. You know what I mean? To, like,
I
make
get
you
it.
question how much. But we feel it as the readers, and so those are some of the challenges with Vader. But I loved working on that book, and
That's awesome.
all those creative solutions were part of what made it so much fun.
There you go, man. This is why I try to pay attention to what you're writing, Greg.
Oh,
I
I
mean, that's
appreciate you.
great. Absolutely, man. And yeah, listen, hey, I've been talking your ear off. We can wrap
Oh no,
here.
yeah, likewise.
Do we miss anything?
I think that's the main. Yeah. So to recap, the books you want to get would be Dungeons and Dragons: The Fallbacks, #1, coming, I think, on October 8th, and also the Return, or the Supernatural book, which is coming in later in October, and the Return to Planet Hulk one shot, which, this isn't the cover for it, but it's the Return to Planet Hulk one shot, which hits October 8th as well. And then come see me at the New York Comic Con. See me at Midtown Comics on October 8th, and then come see me at the New York Comic Con in Artist Alley from the 9th through the 12th.
I'm sorry I'm not going to be there, man. It's always good to see it, in person, but at least we get a little face to face here.
Exactly.
And hey, dude, anytime you got something new,
Oh,
you
man.
throw up the bat signal and I'll come running.
Huge
So,
pleasure. Thank you, John. I appreciate you so much.
and truly, man, I really do. And we'll talk a little bit off the air, but I really do appreciate where the conversation went, because I do think it's important to talk about that stuff.
That's,
So
well, credit to you too, because you opened the door, and it's, I appreciate that. You let the vampire in the room, buddy.
it's true. It's true. Man, we're going to reach back on Monday, and my next Word Balloon Live. We're going to talk about Evel Knievel. There's a big book that Ryland Grant is putting out a Kickstarter campaign on. I was an Evel Knievel kid. I didn't have the toy, but Snake River and all of his jumps, I was there. I've loved the documentaries. I even liked the George Hamilton Evel Knievel movie. Yes, it was crap. Also, Evel made his own movie. So big Evel Knievel discussion coming your way on Monday night on Word Balloon Live. I hope you will join me then. Until next time, everybody stay safe, stay happy, stay healthy.